Rachel had died once already. The last thing she heard wasn't her fiancé calling an ambulance. It was Ryan lowering his voice and saying, "Nobody touch her. I am calling my lawyer first." Welcome to Revenge Cookies. Tonight's story is about a woman who died once for loving the wrong people, then woke up with the rarest gift of all, a second chance, and absolutely no patience left for nonsense. Rachel didn't come back to win her fiancé back. She came back to take her life back. And trust me, the bill is about to come due. When she opened her eyes again, the delicate clink of crystal glasses surrounded her. The charity gala was bright with chandeliers, and the champagne tower scattered shards of light across the ballroom. Rachel stood beside a long table. The engagement ring was still on her left hand, leaving a pale indentation around her finger. Ryan Hale stood in front of her, frowning. "Brooke's already nervous enough tonight," he said. "She only just came back to this family. Could you stop making her feel like an outsider every chance you get?" Rachel looked at him for 3 seconds. Those were the exact same words he had said in her last life. Back then, she had followed him onto the terrace and tried to explain that she wasn't targeting Brooke. 10 minutes later, Brooke had fallen into the fountain, crying that someone had pushed her from behind. Every head had turned toward Rachel. Ryan had immediately stepped in front of Brooke, shielding her, like she was the one person in the room who needed protecting. By the end of that night, Rachel had been branded the jealous adopted daughter who couldn't stand having the biological daughter back home. This time, Rachel raised her left hand. Ryan assumed she was adjusting her earring. Instead, she pinched the ring between 2 fingers and slowly pulled it off. "You are right." Ryan blinked. "Brooke needs you more." Rachel placed the ring in his palm. "So don't keep her waiting." "What are you doing?" "Calling off the engagement." Ryan's fingers closed automatically, the diamond pressing into his palm. He glanced around at once. A couple standing nearby had already started watching them over the rims of their glasses. "Rachel, don't make a scene here." "I am not." She picked up a glass of sparkling water and took a sip. "You don't have to choose between us anymore. I made the choice for you." His jaw tightened. "Because I asked you to be a little nicer to her." Rachel set down her glass. "Because I suddenly realized the two of you make a lot of sense together." Across the room, Brooke stood near the terrace doors in a pale dress, both hands wrapped around her glass. Her eyes were slightly red. The moment she noticed Rachel looking at her, she lowered her gaze and drew her shoulders in. Ryan followed Rachel's line of sight, and his expression darkened. "See, you are making her uncomfortable again." Rachel smiled. "Then go." Ryan didn't move. In the past, all he had to say was, "Brooke needs me," and Rachel would stiffen. She would argue. She would demand an explanation. She would drag whatever dignity they had left into another exhausting fight. Now, she stood straight, calm enough to step aside and clear a path for him. Ryan tightened his grip around the ring, and for once, had no idea what to say next. Brooke approached them. "Am I interrupting something?" she asked softly. Rachel looked at her. "Congratulations." Brooke lifted her head. "For what?" "He is single now." Somebody nearby choked against the rim of a wine glass. Color rushed into Brooke's face. Ryan lowered his voice. "That is enough." Absolutely, Rachel turned and walked away. No one followed her. She didn't look back. On the other side of the ballroom, she ran into Professor Harold, who had taught her statistics in college. He recognized her immediately and launched into an enthusiastic question about the market forecasting model she had built 2 years earlier. Rachel stopped at the bar and began talking with him. About 15 minutes later, a scream came from the terrace. Then came the unmistakable splash of water. The ballroom seemed to freeze. Guests started moving toward the doors. Rachel didn't. Professor Harold glanced toward the commotion. "Young people's charity galas are always more dramatic than thesis defenses." Rachel lifted her glass. "At least nobody asks for citations." The professor laughed. Seconds later, Ryan rushed back inside with soaked cuffs. Brooke fell into the fountain. Rachel looked at him. He hesitated, then added, "She says someone pushed her from behind." The people around them slowly went quiet. Brooke came in supported by Diane, her hair dripping and her mascara smudged under her eyes. She looked at Rachel, her lips trembling. "I didn't see who it was," Brooke said. "But before I went outside, Rachel was the only person I'd talked to." Professor Harold adjusted his glasses. "Then it probably wasn't her." Brooke froze. "Rachel has been standing right here with me for at least 15 minutes, he said. unless she recently mastered being in two places at once. A low laugh escaped someone nearby. Brooke's mouth was still arranged in the shape of a sob. Ryan looked at Rachel. Her dress was perfectly dry. Not a single drop of water marked her heels. Maybe I just slipped, Brooke said quickly. Good. Rachel picked up a clean napkin and offered it to her. Dry off. The floor's slippery. Wouldn't want you falling again. Brooke couldn't decide whether taking it would be worse than refusing it. Rachel set the napkin beside her and walked away. This time, Ryan followed 2 steps. Rachel. She stopped. Take the ring back for now. He held out his hand. We'll talk when you've calmed down. Rachel glanced at the ring. Keep it. What does that mean? You might need it again soon. Then she left. At 11 that night, Rachel returned to the bedroom she had grown up in. Her familiar dresses still hung in the closet. Her college graduation photo still sat on the bookshelf. On an old laptop in her nightstand was an email she had been too afraid to reopen in her previous life. She sat down and turned on the screen. An acceptance page from a top business school in the Northeast appeared. Deadline to accept. Tomorrow at 5 p.m. in her previous life. Ryan had stood behind her with his arms around her and told her the company was entering its most critical year. Give it 1 more year, he'd said. When things settle down, I'll go with you. She had clicked decline. She had never gone back. Rachel rested her hand on the trackpad. Samono knocked on the door. Rachel. Diane's voice came through the wood. Your father, Ryan, Brooke, and I are downstairs. We need to talk about tonight. Then Graham's deeper voice carried up from below. Tell her to come down. Rachel looked at the screen. Before she did anything else, she clicked accept. The confirmation email appeared. Only then did she close the laptop and stand. This time, they really did need to talk. At breakfast the next morning, 6 place settings sat on the table, though only 5 people were seated. Ryan was already there when Rachel came downstairs. Brooke sat beside Diane wrapped in a light blanket. Graham folded his newspaper and set it aside. Ryan placed the engagement ring on the table. Last night is over. Put it back on. Rachel poured herself coffee. Number Brooke looked up. If this is because of me, it isn't. Rachel paused. At least not entirely. Deanne rubbed her temple. You've been together for years. You can't end everything over one argument. I can. Graham looked at her. You've always been the mature one. Brooke just came home. We all need time to adjust. Rachel stirred her coffee twice. Then take all the time you need. What does that mean? I am moving out. Brooke's spoon dropped into her cup. Ryan stared at Rachel. Where are you going? Near campus. Graham frowned. What campus? Rachel slid her acceptance confirmation into the center of the table. Diane picked it up. Her face changed. You accepted. Last night. Ryan's chair scraped backward. Are you serious? Our product demo is next month. Your product demo is next month. You lead the core team. I am an outside consultant. His voice dropped. Don't play word games. Rachel pulled a folder from her bag. Then let's read the contract. Graham took it first. He flipped to the 3rd page and stopped. Original model remains the sole property of Rachel Sullivan. Company receives a limited license for use, which may be terminated upon conclusion of the consulting relationship. Ryan took the document from him. This clause has always been here. Since day 1. You never told me. Your attorney reviewed it. Ryan opened his mouth, then closed it. Because they were engaged, he had never imagined there would come a day when Rachel would separate what belonged to her from what belonged to him. Brooke asked quietly. Then what happens to the product demo? Ryan shot her a look. I was just worried about you, she said quickly. Rachel took another sip of coffee. Ryan slapped the folder onto the table. We can fight, but don't use the company to get back at me. I am not getting back at you. Then why terminate the license now? Because I no longer work for my ex-fiancé, for next to nothing. The company paid you consulting fees, at an entry-level rate. The table went silent. Rachel held Ryan's gaze. You raised multiple rounds of funding using my model. The license is over now. That is all. Brooke hesitated. So, is there still going to be a wedding? Ryan closed his eyes. Rachel looked down at her breakfast, the corner of her mouth twitching. Ryan caught it. You think this is funny? A little. He stood. I have to get back to the office. You are coming with me this afternoon. The board will have questions. Tell them to ask the lawyers." The front door slammed behind him. Diane drew a slow breath. "Do you really have to do this? Mom, yesterday, you told me to be understanding toward Brooke. Dad told me to be mature. Ryan told me to go back to work." She set down her napkin. "Every one of you has spent years telling me what I should do. Now I am telling you." She rose from the table. Brooke suddenly called after her. "I never wanted to push you out." Rachel turned. "Good. Then why do you have to leave?" "Because you are not the only person who needs room to breathe." The movers arrived at noon. Rachel took only her computer, books, clothes, and the old brooch her grandmother had left her. Diane stood in the half-empty closet. "You can come back any time. Thank you. You are still our daughter." Rachel paused over the last book she was packing. "Then remember that when you don't need me to be the reasonable one." As the movers carried the first box downstairs, Graham stepped out of his study. "Leave the car," he said. Rachel glanced toward the driveway. "Grandma left that car to me." Graham stopped. "That isn't what I meant." "I know." He stood on the front steps and watched the movers load her boxes into the trunk. "What happens after school?" "I'll decide when I get there. There will always be a place for you at the family company." Rachel closed her hand around the car keys. "The last thing I need right now is someone else deciding which place I am supposed to occupy." Graham said nothing after that. Brooke stood behind the railing on the second floor. When Rachel looked up, Brooke took one step back and disappeared into the hallway. At 3 that afternoon, Rachel's car pulled away from the house. Her phone vibrated almost non-stop. Ryan, company legal. Her mother, Ryan again. She muted all of it. At 5:12 p.m., Ryan texted her. "The engineering team says we can't run the demo without your latest build. We need to talk." Rachel glanced at the message and turned her phone face down on the passenger seat. An hour later, an unfamiliar number called. It was the head of engineering at Hale Metrics. "Rachel, I know I probably shouldn't be calling you directly." "What happened?" "Ryan told us to keep using the version you terminated." Rachel's grip on the steering wheel tightened. "Did you?" "Number I refused. Send his exact instructions to company legal, in writing." "What about you?" A highway sign ahead pointed north. Rachel turned on her signal. "I am going to school." Back at Hale Metrics, the conference room screen flashed a third failed test. Ryan stared at the red error message and reached into the pocket of his suit. The engagement ring was still there, its hard edge dug into his palm. 3 months later, Rachel woke on a couch in a shared workspace with her laptops, still glowing beside her. Maya Bennett walked over and snapped the screen shut. "You just escaped one unpaid, round-the-clock job," Maya said, tossing Rachel her jacket. "Don't invent another one for yourself." Rachel rubbed the back of her neck. "Is there food downstairs?" "If pizza counts as breakfast, it does." They switched off the lights and headed down. There was no family driver here, no polished silverware, no assigned seats at dinner. Rachel's rented apartment had old pipes that clanged in the middle of the night, and a laundry room, where someone was always using the machine she needed. The first time the pipes woke her, she'd stood in the living room, holding a slipper, like a weapon, because she thought someone had broken in. Maya laughed about it for 10 straight minutes the next morning. Rachel's class schedule was packed. Every spare hour went into a new project. She didn't copy the model she had built for Hale Metrics. Instead, she rebuilt the concept from the ground up, creating a risk analysis platform designed for small and mid-sized businesses. The first time a professor challenged her during class, she got one of the steps wrong. Pages turned around the room. Keys clicked. Rachel stared at the numbers on the whiteboard for 2 seconds. "My assumption was wrong." The professor lifted an eyebrow. "So what do you do now?" Rachel picked up the marker, crossed out the entire line, and said, "Start over. After class." Maya caught up with her. "You know what was terrifying back there? That I got the math wrong. That you admitted it." Rachel pressed the elevator button. "Did someone used to forbid me from admitting mistakes?" "Number." Maya gave her a sideways look. "You just seem like someone who never allowed herself to make one." The elevator doors opened. Rachel didn't answer. She crumpled her draft notes into a ball and landed them cleanly in the trash. After a class presentation, investor Julian Grant stopped her in the hallway. "Would you let me see the full model?" "In what capacity?" "A man with money who hates wasting it." Rachel smiled. "That is more honest than investor." Their first meeting was a demo. The second was a stress test. For the third, Julian brought in a technical consultant. The consultant pushed the laptop back across the table. I can't find an obvious weakness. Julian looked at Rachel. How much do you want? How much equity do you want? They spoke at the same time. Maya sat in the corner, trying not to laugh. Julian leaned back. I like you, don't. Rachel opened the term sheet. That sentence gets expensive when we're negotiating. That night, he sent her the first investment offer. Rachel didn't sign it. She went home and recalculated her valuation. At 2 a.m., Ryan texted, "We need to discuss the model." She didn't answer. The next night at 1:17 a.m., "The board has questions only you can answer." Still no answer. On the third night, "Did you really mean it when you said we were over?" Rachel stared at the screen. Maya walked out of the kitchen and balanced a cereal box on Rachel's head. "If you stare at it for 5 more seconds, the message isn't going to get smarter." Rachel turned the phone face down. A week later, Hale Metrics canceled its product launch. The following week, 2 senior engineers resigned. Ryan began contacting Rachel through attorneys, asking her to provide technical support in light of their long-standing working relationship. Her lawyer's answer, dressed up in legal language, meant one thing. Meanwhile, Brooke began appearing constantly in social photos, engagement parties, venue tours, charity lunches, and on her finger was the ring that had once belonged to Rachel. Maya slid one of the pictures across the table. "Wasn't that yours?" "Used to be. He didn't even buy a new ring. Maybe money's tight." Maya nearly sprayed water across the table. Rachel laughed too. Then her fingers stilled over the keyboard. Years earlier, when Ryan first put that ring on her finger, they had still been living in a tiny apartment. He had hidden the ring box in a takeout bag, and Rachel had nearly thrown it away with the trash. They spent 10 minutes crouched beside a garbage, digging through containers and napkins before they found it. On the screen, Brooke looked beautiful and radiant. Rachel closed the photo. The next day, Julian arrived with his final terms. "You said my valuation was too low last time." "It was. So I raised it." "Still low." Julian looked at her for a long moment. "You are a lot harder to negotiate with than you were 3 months ago." Rachel picked up the pen. "Thank you. That wasn't a compliment. I'll take it anyway." She signed the final page. Rachel Sullivan. The ink had barely dried when an argument broke out near reception. Ryan pushed open the conference room door. He had lost weight. His suit still fit, but his tie was loose. His eyes went first to Rachel, then Julian. Then the signed investment agreement on the table. "Rachel." Everyone in the room looked up. "We need to talk." Rachel checked the time. "I have 7 minutes, alone." Julian didn't move. Rachel gathered the papers into a neat stack. "Then you've got 6. Ryan's jaw tightened. "Our launch completely failed. The board wants a working version by the end of the month." "Good luck, Rachel." His voice dropped. "Come back with me." Outside the glass wall, Maya stopped mid-step with 2 coffees in her hands. Rachel looked up. "Back where?" Ryan opened his mouth. 6 minutes suddenly felt very long. People passed outside carrying laptops. Someone wheeled a whiteboard through the hall. Nothing in this building belonged to Ryan. Nothing here depended on him. "Home," he finally said. "Which home?" His breathing caught. Julian glanced at his watch. 5 minutes. "Who are you?" "Her investor." "I wasn't talking to you." "Then you shouldn't have looked at me." Rachel lifted one hand. Julian smiled and stood. "I'll be outside." The door closed. Ryan pulled out a chair. "The board is willing to give you equity." "I don't need it." "More than before." "I don't need it." "You haven't even heard the number." "Because I already have my own company." Ryan's hand slowly curled into a fist. "That project was something we built together." Rachel opened the old version history and turned her laptop around. Rows and rows of commit records filled the screen. Nearly all of them showed the same name, Rachel Sullivan. "You stayed up late working on pitch decks," she said. "I stayed up late building the model. Without my company, nobody would have seen your model." "That is true." Ryan looked up sharply. "Which is why I used to be grateful to you." Rachel closed the laptop. "You took my gratitude and decided it meant ownership." He was quiet for several seconds. "Brooke's been difficult lately." "Then go deal with Brooke." "I didn't come here to defend her." "Then who did you come here to defend?" His phone lit up. Brooke. Ryan declined the call. Rachel saw it. She isn't the person you think she is, he said. I don't think about her. She came back to that family with nothing. She has you now. Ryan fell silent. Rachel leaned back in her chair. Wasn't that what you wanted? His gaze dropped to her left hand. The pale mark from the engagement ring was gone. Did you see the engagement photos? I did. You didn't feel anything. Rachel paused. It is still the same ring. Ryan's shoulders stiffened. She likes it. Very sustainable. A muffled laugh came from outside the door. Maya immediately covered her mouth. Ryan rubbed his forehead. We used to be good together. We did. That old apartment, do you remember it? The guy upstairs dragged furniture around every night at 3 a.m, and you said he was probably training racehorses. Rachel couldn't help smiling. Ryan smiled too, only for a second. Then they both went quiet. He leaned forward. See, you still remember. Remembering something doesn't mean I want it back. Then why throw everything away? I didn't throw everything away. Rachel stood. I just stopped keeping broken things in the middle of my living room. Outside, Julian tapped the glass. Time. Ryan stood too. I can end things with Brooke. Rachel opened the door for him. Don't. You think I can't let her go. I don't care. Rachel, you used to think Brooke needed you more, so you chose her. Now she is exhausting you, and suddenly I am the better option again. Ryan's face hardened. You make me sound like a terrible person. I am just putting the events in the right order. I loved you. I know. I still. Don't. He stopped. Don't throw another woman away just because you think it might make me come back. Brooke called again. Ryan glanced at the screen. Then what do you want me to do? Rachel stepped aside, clearing the doorway. For once, figure that out yourself. Ryan left. In the elevator, he called Brooke back. She answered immediately. The wedding planner has been waiting for an hour. Something came up at work. It is always work. You promised we'd pick the menu today. I am not in the mood to talk about menus. When will you be? After the company collapses. The two strangers sharing the elevator both looked up. Ryan's fingers tightened around his phone. What did you just say? There was a 1-second silence. I didn't mean it like that. He ended the call. As the elevator descended, Brooke sent a picture. 2 place settings sat on a tasting table. She was alone on one side. Under it, she wrote, You promised you'd be here. Ryan typed a reply. Deleted it. Typed another. Deleted that too. Finally, he sent, We'll talk later. Brooke answered, almost immediately. You went to see her, didn't you? He didn't reply. His phone rang again. Ryan silenced it. In the mirrored elevator wall, his own face looked unfamiliar. He lifted a hand to straighten his tie, and his fingers brushed the tie clip. Only then did he realize he had rushed out that morning, wearing the one Rachel had given him years ago. He stared at it for 2 seconds, removed it, and shoved it into his pocket. Back, in the conference room, Rachel sat down again. Julian pushed the paperwork toward her. Valuation. Up 8%. Your ex-fiancé was worth at least 2 points. Rachel had just picked up her pen when her phone rang. Her attorney skipped the small talk. We obtained Hale Metrics' latest fundraising materials. They're using results generated from your model after the license was terminated. Rachel's pen stopped. You are sure? The version ID matches. Who accessed it? We found an unusual login. Rachel opened the permission logs. An account appeared on screen. Not Ryan. Brooke. The first time Brooke logged into Hale Metrics' internal system, she was looking for a wedding guest list. Ryan had given her personal assistant access. Email, calendar, contacts. All of it. Later, when cash got tight, Ryan started spending 12 or 14 hours a day at the office. Brooke stopped asking what time he'd be home. Instead, she asked when the remaining wedding bills would be paid. The first time, Ryan said next week. The second time, the wedding planner copied Brooke directly on the overdue notice. Are you out of money? Brooke asked. Ryan was in the middle of a call. She waited 2 minutes, then reached over and ended it. I am asking you a question. Ryan whipped around. Are you serious? Are you out of money? The company's cash position and my personal account are not the same thing. Then why hasn't the balance been paid? Because it isn't the most important thing right now. Brooke laughed once. For you, it never is. Ryan tossed his phone onto the desk. Do you have any idea how many emails the board sends me every day? No, because you don't tell me anything. What would be the point? The room went still. The smile disappeared from Brooke's face. Ryan paused too. That isn't what I meant. Rachel knew, didn't she? Don't bring her into this. Why not? Every time something goes wrong at the company, the first thing anyone says is, if Rachel were still here. Ryan grabbed his phone. I am going to the office. We have a tasting today. Schedule it. The door slammed behind him. Brooke sat back down in front of the mirror while the makeup artist picked up her brush again. A few minutes later, Brooke opened Ryan's work email. She only meant to find the finance messages. Then she noticed a folder. Legacy model. Inside was an early demo file. Rachel, Brooke clicked it. The system requested two-factor authentication. Her personal assistant permissions offered an authorization option. Brooke stared at the screen for 3 seconds. Then she clicked confirm. 2 weeks later, Rachel's attorney placed the access log on the table. She downloaded it. Can we prove she gave it to Ryan? Number. Then don't guess. Send a formal cease and desist notice and demand preservation of all records. The wedding weekend is also their fundraising deadline. All the more reason to send it now. That same afternoon, Graham received a financial report of his own. Money originally intended for an investment in Hale Metrics had been split into several transfers and sent to another company. The person in charge had the last name Ellis. Deanne opened the study door. We still have the wedding tasting tonight. Graham covered the papers. Has Brooke asked you to sign any account authorizations recently? One for wedding payments. You signed it? She said. It was just for vendors. Graham stood so quickly his chair slid backward. Find every authorization you've signed. At dinner that night, 4 people sat in silence for half a minute because of an empty chair. Rachel had always sat to Graham's right. Whenever he took a business call during dinner, she quietly wrote down the names of everyone he needed to call back. Since she moved out, that seat had stayed empty. Brooke carried her wine over and sat there. Diane spoke without thinking. That was Rachel's. She stopped halfway through. Brooke set down her glass. She has been gone for months. That isn't what I meant. Lately, none of you ever mean what you say. Graham looked down and cut into his steak. Ryan said nothing either. Brooke suddenly dropped her napkin onto the table. So every time I do something she used to do, you are all going to think of her. No one answered. She stood. The chair scraped loudly across the floor. Then enjoy thinking about her. After the door closed, Diane stared at the empty chair and slowly set down the fork she had just picked up. Later, in a hotel suite, Brooke stood in front of a mirror wearing her wedding dress. Ryan sat on the couch, staring at his phone. She watched him through the mirror. Do you like it? Yeah. What do you like about it? Ryan finally looked up. What? Brooke closed her eyes. Forget it. Ryan's phone rang again. He stepped onto the balcony to answer. When he came back, his face was pale. Tomorrow's rehearsal is canceled. Why? The lawyers sent a notice. Rachel says, we're using her model. Brooke gripped the fabric of her skirt. Are you? Ryan didn't answer. You told me you stopped using anything that belonged to her. It is historical data. What is the difference? You wouldn't understand. Brooke laughed. There it is again. Ryan tugged at his collar. Did you access my work account? Around them, the stylists and assistants began moving more slowly. I was looking for the guest list. You downloaded the legacy model. I clicked the wrong file. Then why are numbers from that file in the fundraising deck? You are asking me. The activity log is under your account. Because you are the one who gave me access. Their voices rose faster with every sentence. Brooke tore off her veil. If you think I ruined your company, then why are we even getting married? Ryan didn't answer. 10 seconds. 20. Brooke stared at him. You don't want to marry me. Don't be ridiculous. You want to marry Sullivan Money. Ryan looked up. And you. Brooke went still. Are you really pushing this wedding because you are in love with me? The door opened. Graham stood outside, holding a file envelope. He handed it to Brooke. Explain this. The veil slipped from her hand when she saw the first page. It showed the company registered in her name and every transfer that had gone into it. Down the hallway, Ryan's phone vibrated again. Emergency board meeting. Time. 9 a.m. on his wedding day. At 8:40 the next morning, Brooke was already in her wedding gown. Her makeup artist was touching up her face for the third time. The night before, Graham hadn't asked where the missing money had gone. He had only said, "We'll talk after the wedding." At 9 sharp, Ryan still hadn't appeared. At 9:15, his best man called 3 times. At 9:20, Brooke slammed her phone onto the vanity. "Where is he?" 1 floor away, Ryan sat across from the board. The chairperson slid 2 documents toward him. One was a formal intellectual property dispute notice. The other was an independent audit report. "Until the investigation is complete, you are suspended from your duties as CEO." Ryan stared at the sentence. "I am getting married today." "I know. You can't do this today. We wanted to do it yesterday. You asked us to wait until this morning." Ryan's hand stopped over the pen. "And if I refuse, then we release the findings publicly." 10 minutes later, he walked out of the conference room. There were 47 missed calls on his phone. Brooke was at the top of the list. There wasn't a single call or message from Rachel. At 11, guests began filling the ballroom. White flowers, candles, and long tables were arranged perfectly. Diane stood at the entrance, smiling, though one hand never stopped gripping her purse. Graham didn't touch the champagne. Brooke took his arm. "Dad, can we talk later?" That was always the plan. The music began. The doors opened. Brooke walked down the aisle, one measured step at a time. Ryan stood at the front in formal wear. Only Brooke noticed the corner of a folded white page sticking from his breast pocket. It wasn't his vows. She reached his side. The ceremony had barely begun when the first phone screen lit up. Then a second. Then a third. People in the back row lowered their heads toward their screens. A moment later, guests in the front rows were checking theirs too. Ryan's expression changed. "What is it?" Brooke whispered. "Nothing." Graham's phone vibrated. The company announcement was public. Hale Metrics had suspended its CEO pending an investigation. Busyness Media were simultaneously reporting an intellectual property dispute. Whispers moved through the ballroom from back to front. Brooke grabbed Ryan's phone. She read the alert. "You already knew. We'll talk outside." "You already knew?" Her voice rose. The ceremony stopped. Ryan lowered his voice. "Not now." Brooke let out a short laugh. "When then? After I say I do?" Deanne stood. "Brooke, Mom, did you know?" "Just finish the ceremony first." "Finish what?" Brooke turned to Ryan. "He isn't even CEO anymore." The ballroom went silent. Ryan's face darkened. "Stop. Why? Aren't you the one who is always obsessed with appearances?" Graham stood. "Enough." Brooke swung toward him. "You knew too." Graham didn't answer. Ryan spoke quietly. "You've been hiding things from me too." Brooke stiffened. "What are you talking about?" "That company." Graham's expression hardened. Ryan raised his phone. "My attorney just received the fund tracing report. It isn't what you think. $800,000 went into a company you control. What exactly am I supposed to think?" Brooke's breathing turned uneven. It was a reserve account for vendors. Graham slapped the file against the back of a chair. "The vendors never got the money." Ryan stared at her. "So that is why you kept pushing me to pay the remaining wedding bills. Because you'd already moved the money." Brooke snapped her head up. "You have some nerve asking me that. You used Rachel's work to raise money for your company." That sentence silenced the entire room. For months, everyone had carefully avoided one name. Now it landed in the middle of the wedding. Tears spilled down Brooke's face. "You told me she was only a consultant. Then the second your company started falling apart, you ran straight back to her." Ryan looked across the guests. "Stop talking." "Did you beg her to come back?" He didn't answer. Brooke wiped her tears away. "This is unbelievable." She shoved her bouquet into her bridesmaid's hands. "I spent a year trying to prove I could take her life." She looked at Ryan, then at her parents. "And the whole time, every single one of you was waiting for her to come back." Brooke turned and walked out of the ballroom. Graham didn't follow. Diane took 2 steps after her, then stopped. Ryan remained where he was, in less than 10 minutes. A wedding that had taken nearly a year to plan was reduced to scattered flower petals and untouched champagne. Dozens of miles away, Rachel was standing on stage at her company's launch event, answering questions from potential clients. When the last question ended, Julian handed her a drink. "Your phone is about to vibrate itself off the table." Maya had already read the news. Want to see? Rachel shook her head. After we're done. It is spectacular. Then enjoy it twice for me. Only after the event ended did Rachel walk over to the windows. Her father's name appeared on her phone. She answered. Rachel. Graham's voice sounded rough. The wedding didn't happen, I heard. We were wrong. Your mother misses you. Rachel tightened her hand around the phone. Come home. She looked at her reflection in the glass. After several seconds, she asked, if nothing had gone wrong today, would you still be calling me? There was no answer on the other end. Across the room, Maya pushed open the door and held up Rachel's coat. Coming. Graham finally spoke. You are still our daughter. I know. Then why can't you come home? Rachel looked at the streetlights coming on outside. Because a daughter shouldn't only be called home when everyone else has a problem. She ended the call. Her screen lit again almost immediately. Ryan. She didn't answer. A message followed. I should have chosen you. Rachel looked at it for 2 seconds. Then she deleted it. Maya tossed her the coat. You coming? Yeah. The elevator carried them to the ground floor. A small restaurant on the corner was still open. Pizza? Maya asked. Pizza. They crossed the street together. Behind them, the office lights went dark floor by floor. This time, Rachel didn't stay behind to turn off the last one for anyone. Ryan's biggest mistake wasn't choosing Brooke. It was believing Rachel would always be there when he changed his mind. For years, he treated her intelligence like company property, her loyalty like an employee benefit, and her patience like something that could never expire. She helped build the very thing that made him successful, and somehow he convinced himself that meant she needed him more than he needed her. Then Rachel walked away, and suddenly, everything started shaking. The company struggled. The launch collapsed. The board started asking uncomfortable questions, and only then did Ryan discover that the woman he had treated like background support had actually been holding up half the building. Funny how some people only recognize your value after they can no longer use it. And Brooke. She spent so much time trying to take Rachel's place that she never stopped to ask whether that life was even worth stealing. She got the ring, the fiancé, the family's attention, and almost the wedding. Congratulations. She won the package. The package came with a failing company, a distracted groom, financial problems, and a man who was still looking over his shoulder at the woman he let go. That isn't winning. That's picking up someone else's abandoned shopping cart and calling it luxury. And Rachel's family wasn't much better. They kept asking her to be mature, understanding, patient, reasonable. Have you noticed how often be the bigger person really means? Please continue accepting bad behavior, because confronting the person causing it would be inconvenient for us. Rachel finally stopped volunteering for that role. She didn't scream. She didn't beg. She didn't spend her second chance trying to convince anyone that they had hurt her. She simply removed her ring, reclaimed her work, accepted the opportunity she once sacrificed, and built a life that no longer required anyone's permission. That is what made her revenge so satisfying. Because the real victory wasn't Ryan losing his company. It wasn't Brooke walking out of her own wedding. It wasn't even Rachel's family finally realizing how badly they had failed her. The real victory came at the very end, when Ryan sent her the message he probably thought would change everything. I should have chosen you. And Rachel deleted it. No speech, no dramatic reunion, no final argument. Because by then, she understood something far more powerful than revenge. Being chosen by someone who once discarded you is not a prize. Ladies, never confuse someone regretting your absence with someone deserving your presence. You do not need to stay long enough for people to finally recognize your worth. You do not need their apology to move forward, and you certainly do not need their regret to prove that leaving was the right decision. Sometimes the strongest ending isn't watching them crawl back. It's becoming so deeply invested in your own life that you barely notice when they do. She took back everything that was hers. Now tell me, are you ready to rewrite your own script? I'm Nova. Sleep well tonight, tomorrow. Rise, as someone they'll never get the chance to underestimate again.